Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Temte. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today, we have Brett Westgrove joining us. Cue the applause track. Brett is a rising country music artist based in Nashville and is the owner of Brett Westgrove Music. He has a really super interesting backstory as an entrepreneur and, wait for it, rocket scientist. So welcome to the show, Brett.
Thanks, Andy. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. So I ask all of my guests this question. Give our listeners the short version of your story.
Short version. Okay. Bullet points. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So born here in central Wisconsin, and my mom always says I came out singing. So music was immediately a thing for me, always performing, doing anything I could to get in front of people.
Yep.
Fast forward to middle school, had my first band. High school, started singing in like every choir imaginable. Even got to travel a couple times to New York, sang in Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, like some really cool opportunities that really, during my formative years, really drove music into me.
Right.
So around the same time, I started my first recording studio, also here in Wisconsin. After that, I moved to California, ran a studio out there, had a couple of small businesses, did the solo acoustic pop artist thing out there, and eventually had some weird circumstances, weird times, and I quit music, went back to Colorado, did the rocket science thing, and eventually quit that again for music. Moved to Nashville, lived in my car for a while, browned my way through the scene, and now we're here.
Yeah, that is just awesome. So we're going to really dive into that story in more depth. But what's one event in your life, if you had to pick just one, that was just a real accelerant for you in your career? What would it be?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I think there were a lot of moments that I thought were going to be accelerants. Obviously, moving to California, I thought I was going to show up and be discovered, and
Right.
And that was going to be it. And I was on a MTV show out there, this music-based reality show. I won. I thought, all right, surely now. I think for me, it wasn't as so much a singular moment as it was a process of growth. And only in the last year has that happened for me. But I talk a lot about learning growths and how they're exponential, not linear, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have this habit of thinking like, oh, first year I'll get to 10, and then the second year I'll get to 20, and they think it's a linear growth, and
Right.
things are rarely that way.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky enough that I had a lot of people who saw my potential and believed in me. So I fought my way through the first 3, 4, 5 years where I was working really hard and making no noticeable growth. The accelerant for me was in the last year. Externally, people started showing up, volunteering their time, their most precious resource, some finances, things like that. And right around that same time, I think with my vocals, my songwriting, my producing, I reached that exponential part of the curve where things started to blow up. And so that positive feedback loop of, oh, I made some progress. Oh, people are showing up. They're giving me their time. Now I work harder. Now I get better. And that was the accelerant for me. And so I think the moral of the story is I had to get through the first tough part.
Yeah.
And then the accelerant was grinding through that and seeing a result.
Yeah. A lot of people in those nonlinear curves, there's something called an inflection point where you accelerate at an increasing rate. We're not going to get all calculus.
Sure. I would love to, though.
Yeah, I know. We could geek out for hours, I'm sure. But I want to shift gears a little bit. Go back to your teens, because you've got, you built a few businesses. What drove that entrepreneurial spirit in you? Because a lot of people think they want to start a business. They want to go out and be an entrepreneur. But what was it inside of you that said, I'm going to go and do this?
Yeah. I think it just has to be curiosity.
Yeah.
Everything I look at in the world, I want to know how it works, or bigger than that, I either purposely want to do something that I've never done before or that someone else has never done before.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would just like start businesses because of that. I started a printing company in California because I needed to make CDs and DVDs and print material, and it was expensive. And I was like, I could probably figure out how to do this. And luckily I had clientele at the recording studio who also needed that. So instantly I had clients, and I learned how to print, do all this press material. And then I had all the equipment. And also in California, something that at the time, it sounds crazy to think now, but at the time was not really being done, was like, I got there, and I've been a car person all my life, building cars, and that's been my big hobby. They had this like subculture in the California scene of guys building electric cars in their garages.
Yeah.
But it's not like what we know now. These are like glorified golf carts, it'd be like a little Civic or a Beetle or something. And they were slow, no AC, no power steering, nothing. And coming from the car world and loving to go fast, I was like, well, I know what these things can do. And so I went out, I got a loan, bought a little 2-seat Roadster convertible, and started assembling like forklift parts I was going to modify. And I was going to build this luxury electric sports car. Yep. And I wanted to do it so bad because I was so curious if it could be done.
Yeah.
Turns out it could be. Yeah. I kind of wish I would have stayed on that one. Could have been a competition for a company that some people know.
Right. So what I'm hearing is really 4 things. I'm hearing curiosity. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing courage. Oh. I'm hearing creativity. Right. Those are 3 C's. And I'm blanking on whatever I thought was the 4th one, but those are the 3, 4 C's: curiosity, courage, creativity. I feel that in that story. Would you agree? Yeah.
And it's interesting because I wouldn't have seen that. In fact, even to get to curiosity was kind of tricky for me because I've just always done things. Yeah. Right. So I didn't even realize why. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, curiosity is the obvious one, but courage, that's a big one. Yeah. I think about when I started the little car startup, I had never taken a loan. I didn't have a credit card, never had debt in my life. Yeah. And so to take that on, and it's very much the same in music now too. I mean, it's a lot of big risks, a lot of big leaps in investing in ways that I guess takes courage.
Yeah. Awesome. So next in your story, you go to Colorado University at Boulder, mm-hmm. right? And you land a job as a sophomore as a command controller with NASA. That's one of the things when our joint friend Brittany said, you got to meet this guy. And she told me that, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to have him on my show because I'm so curious about this. Give us a look inside that time in your life. I'm a space nerd, so I'm insanely jealous.
Yeah. I grew up the same way, loving space and airplanes and all the things. That time in my life was wild. The aerospace program at CU at the time was something like top 5. Yeah. They'd let like 100 students in, something. And by the end of the first semester, 25% were gone. By the end of the next semester, another 25% of the remainder mm-hmm. were gone, and so it was a really demanding program. So at the same time, I landed this like coveted job. It's one of the only places in the country, one of 2 or 3, that undergrads are essentially, they're given the keys. They're like, well, here's $1 billion spacecraft.
Yeah, that's what's freaking me out about this. That's why I want to hear this story.
That's a bit what made it stressful because, they relied on us. We had very thorough training, an entire summer of full days, crazy testing, practical exams. But it was very stressful. And sometimes, you'd be on call. So you'd get called in the middle of the night. There's a spacecraft that happened to go into emergency mode. There was a fault. You have to come and figure out what happened, what went wrong, how to fix it. And then a lot of times you work through the night and you have a big exam at 8 a.m. Yeah. And so I was doing all of that. A couple of years in, I was also doing my undergrad and graduate program. I got into a program that allowed me to do them both at the same time, which I don't know what I was thinking, but so I was doing that. I was in the Lockheed Martin high-tech entrepreneurship program on the side of that. And then I was also building some software startups. And so like I said, crazy time in life, stressful. I still have nightmares about it.
Yeah.
But I think I built up a lot of resilience. It was cool. I actually look back at that self now, and I'm still trying to learn from that self, because somehow I did all of those things and was so productive. And it's almost like right now I have more time than I need, and I can't get even a quarter of that.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Well, that speaks to that nonlinear nature of growth. So many people grow up with this mindset that it is step 2 comes after step 1, step 3 comes after 2, and it's not that way. You have these bursts, and then periods of not a whole lot going on, and then these bursts, but the consistency, the curiosity, the courage, always asking why, what's next. That's what I think is so cool about your story. And if listeners can really tap into that in themselves and trust that if they keep going, keep after it, that it's going to come. Will it be exactly what they dreamed of? Probably not.
Right.
But it'll be some version of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things I talk to about people when they come into the music industry now is, you hear so many stories, and the one truth that stays the same throughout all of them is just stick it out, put the time in. It's why they call Nashville a 10-year town. And so many people have had that story. And I think just the tenacity to keep going is paramount.
Yeah, it's just so easy to give up. But Brett, before we cut to a quick commercial break, I want to talk music. So tell me about the moment where you said to yourself, yeah, this rocket science stuff is cool, but I really got to get back to music.
That moment where everyone thought I was crazy.
Right.
Even my parents, who've supported me my whole life, probably thought I was absolutely nuts. But actually, it's funny because my mom played a role in that. It was the Christmas before my last semester of grad school. And she called me up and she's like, hey, Brett, could you bring your guitar home for Christmas?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, of course. Anything you want, Mom, of course. She's done so much for me. That's the least I could do for her. So I pulled the guitar out from under the bed. Been there for like 4 years. I dust it off. I take it home, and it was like she knew. I don't know how, but she knew. I took the guitar home. I took it out. We have this beautiful den in my parents' house, hardwood floors, cathedral ceilings, big windows, fireplace. And within seconds, I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why I do this.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't actually the moment, but that was a moment where I was on a new path. So I immediately left, went back to Colorado. I had a friend, Sarah, who has always been very encouraging. She lived with me out in California and did a bunch of music stuff. She was helping me in Colorado. We started shooting music videos and putting them up on YouTube and booking little shows around Denver. And so we were doing that, and I was seeing all this music stuff. And so it was about 2 weeks. This is the moment. It was about 2 weeks before graduation. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm coding a mathematical model to predict how the change in solar flux will affect the voltage of these aging spacecraft batteries as its orbit processes out of sun synchronicity. And I just remember looking up. I remember this so clearly as I'm doing this crazy predictive model for this NASA spacecraft. And I'm like, this is really cool, but this is not it.
Yeah.
And I knew that instant I was never going to have another aerospace job. I knew I was, going to do the music thing. And within a couple months, thanks to 3 or 4 very key people who, really pushed me to move to Nashville. I was in my car, I had a sleeping bag in the back, and I moved to Nashville.
Wow, that is such an inspiring story. Now, as you're talking about building that model to that predictive model, I'm thinking to myself, Back to the Future, 1.21 gigawatts.
Oh my gosh, for real, yeah.
That is
it's actually one of my favorite movies. I'm so happy you brought that up.
Yeah, that's so fun. So we're going to take a really short commercial break. We'll be right back with Brett Westgrove. Hey, it's Andy here. I've got a new podcast I'd like to introduce you to, The Saturday Morning Muse. Start your weekend with me by exploring topics that span leadership, business management, education, and other musings that are designed to support your journey of personal and professional continuous improvement. Subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. And we're back with Brett Westgrove talking about the music industry, his mom, entrepreneurship, and rocket science. Let's continue where we left off at the break. Give us a glimpse into your songwriting process. What's how do you get inspiration? I've written music as well.
Yeah.
It is hard.
It is hard.
And so what's your process?
Well, once again, I'm going to give a little backstory to this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I moved to Nashville not wanting to songwrite at all. And Nashville very much works that way. The writers write the songs, the publishers pitch the songs to the artists cut the songs. And of course, there's variations of that. But so I knew it was a possibility. And so I just wanted to perform. I think my ultimate role is to perform for people, to meet people, to hang out, just spread goodness.
Love and joy.
Yeah. Yep. And so moved to Nashville, didn't intend on writing. And very quickly, I learned that some of the biggest artists that all y'all know started as writers, and it opens doors.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'll do this. And at that time, it was very uninspired. It was the opposite of what we're trying to figure out here, right? It was, well, they're doing this on the radio. I'll write about that too. Just trying to fit in, just trying to get by. And then I did this weird thing because I'm a very when there's love in my life, it's my whole life. And so when I moved to Nashville, I said, look, if you're going to do this thing, if you're going to make all these sacrifices, leave your family behind and friends and relationships, you're going to be all in. So I said, no girls, no dating. And after a couple of years, I was out on tour, and a couple of times in my life, I met some girls and clicked with them and kind of broke that rule, which ended up ending terribly because, the career, the schedule, the distance, touring, it takes a very special person to be down with that. But I found myself at home one day, and I real quick succession, bang, 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 wrote 3 original solo written songs.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, what just happened? And they were great songs. Actually, I put 2 of them out so far this year. And I realized it was authenticity.
Yeah.
And so now that's my biggest driver. I will strive to write something that is 100% my story, or I'll meet with a co-writer. They'll pitch me an idea. If I resonate with it, I'll say, okay, we tweak these things, make it represent me a little more. And then of course there's the rare case where someone just has a song and they're like, you were great for this. And I read the lyrics and I'm like, holy crap, did you write this about me? And so I will cut that song.
Yeah.
But in general, it needs to be real.
Yeah.
Authentic.
Now, I write in white noise. So on airplanes, on my lawn tractor, and most on my bicycle, riding. Brett is at my house right now, and it's the first time he's been here, the beautiful rolling hills of western Wisconsin. So I get on my bicycle, and the wind rushes through my ears, and that sound. And then song ideas, song threads come to me, over the years, thousands of them, but just a few of them stick out. What do you need around you when you're writing a song?
I don't know that I've figured that out yet. I think it's a very, like we were talking before, it just ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
But I have noticed that when I'm at the gym, and I think it's something to do with, your brain is a little clear, and you got the blood pumping and your brain is just on high activity level, and suddenly ideas are just coming to me. And of course it's so hard because you can't write them down. You're like running or lifting or something, sometimes in the car. But I haven't figured out a formula for, okay, I need to write a song. I'm going to sit down right now and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to bring the music and the entrepreneurship together. Okay. And this is your opportunity to talk about this tea thing that you that you brought up. So how is your experience as an entrepreneur, all that background influencing your career as a musician? How are you bringing them together and ready, set, go? This is your time to pitch something called Honey Sweet.
So I have this song called Sugar Honey Iced Tea. And the last couple of years I've been working on a company that is named the same thing, Sugar Honey Iced Tea. And our first product is the Sugar Honey Iced Tea. And then there'll eventually be a whole line. It's an experience brand, like we're tying it. It's such amazing synergy with music, right? So we're going to have festivals. We're going to sponsor festivals. We already bring it to festivals and people are just clamoring for it. So it's a great product. Very different problems in business with that and music. With this one, I would say right now I'm dealing with leadership and keeping things on track. Yep. So I brought someone in to kind of operate as like COO sort of that, the alcohol company for now. And it's been hard to keep it on track. And I'm so busy with music. And so I need to step up with leadership with that. And I'm seeing that very clearly now with music. That one has always been kind of easy because I knew it was going to be a business. It was a brand. So I showed up in Nashville and I approached that way. Whereas all my counterparts on Lower Broadway where I started, they didn't get it. They were just playing whatever they wanted to, whatever shows, and then spending their money on drinks and trucks and trips. And where I was building logos and branding and I was hiring videographers, and the videos I shot for this show got me the next show that was bigger. And then I spent the money that I got paid for that bigger show. All of it went to the videographers to film that show. Yeah. And then that show, the video from that, and it's just a rinse and repeat kind of thing. And so, spend money to make money, right? And I'm still very much in that stage. We're getting close to a breakthrough, but that was the biggest thing for me is just understanding it's a business because kind of everything is.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason why I'm sitting here talking to you as podcaster, author, former CEO, and musician, but that's not my primary, because when I was a very young man, I thought it was all about the party and the what's next and the groups around me and not the business aspect.
Well, and I think that's why I failed the first time when I was in California. I was doing it wrong, approaching it wrong. And then, when you approach and do things wrong, you're not going to get the outcome.
Right.
If you get an outcome at all, you're not going to get the one you want.
But if it's wrong and you learn from it, it's a big win.
100%.
Now, it wouldn't be the Balancing Act podcast without discussing a balancing act. So what's the most important balancing act that you have to play as you strive to make it in the music industry?
I realized a minute ago that I think I know what that is because of the question about songwriting inspiration, and it's balance with personal life.
Yeah.
And so I very clearly was not, I said no girls, no dating, nothing.
Right.
And I also...
Good luck with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you work up, it's just everyone's around, everyone's friendly. They all want to hang out, and it's tough. Especially when you find a genuine connection with someone, you don't want to just ignore it. But yeah, I think it's balance, and that comes down to family, especially for me. For a lot of years, I just didn't have the ability to get home. So there were years I didn't get home at all the whole year. Yeah. A lot of the years it was one time at Christmas for a couple of weeks. But I've been putting a lot of effort into getting home and hanging out with my family and hanging out with my team, which, the team I have now is phenomenal. It keeps growing and they are family. It's been amazing. Like I've decided I don't do anything anymore with anyone if they don't feel like family, from venues to agents, whatever. It's got to be family. And so, yeah, I'm putting more effort into that. I think I've been up to Wisconsin from Nashville, which is like a 12-hour drive, I made that. That's one way. I've done that like 10 times already this year.
Awesome.
And, there's no metric I can actually measure, but since I've been doing that, it's a noticeable difference in not only my happiness and my mental well-being, but it feels like my successes have been just going crazy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we got, unfortunately, we have to round things out.
Sure.
You have a show to get to in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Now, before we cut to the last question, I want to, the people aren't going to be able to see his hat, but it says, "Keep Wisconsin Beard."
Mm-hmm.
And our son, Brandon, lived out in Portland where, you know, that famous sign, "Keep Portland Weird." Mm-hmm. This is the Wisconsin version of that. I was
playing a festival and I saw this hat on a guy. And I told him I loved the hat. And he's like, "Here, you can have it."
Nice.
And it's been my favorite hat since it was like 2 years ago. And I've been wearing it all the time.
Nice. Keep Wisconsin Beard. So 2 lightning round questions really quick. I put you in a time machine. You can send an earlier version. You can send a short message to an earlier version of Brett Westgrove. What's the message and who do you send it to?
Speaking of Back to the Future. Okay. 2 things come to mind with a big asterisk. Be confident. And just get better at being comfortable in your own skin. The other one is don't listen to everyone who tells you you're great, because I had a lot of people around me that loved me so much that they sugarcoated things. And I didn't put enough work in when I was younger to get better at singing. But honestly, my ultimate answer to questions like these is I don't think I would do it.
Nice.
I'm a big
You're the first guest I've ever had that said, I'm not going to do it. I'm 99% sure.
Well, you know, I mean, I can see so many great things, and I could see just a lot of fun things I could do, a lot of, you know, but I believe in the path. I believe in the timeline. I would love to have been in Nashville, you know, earlier, but I think, you know, everything I'm doing right now, things are going so well in my career that the slightest little thing I might be somewhere else. Yep. I might not be sitting here with you right now, you know, and like that's extremely valuable to me. And I just trust in that process, and I keep working knowing that I'm on the right path.
Awesome. Last question. What are you doing right now to invest in your own personal journey of growth as a leader?
2 things. One is kind of general for the whole organization, is that I'm working really hard on having tough conversations.
Yep.
Don't like sugarcoating, but also, especially in Western countries, we do it a lot.
I know.
You know, it's the, I always tell people, it's like you go to a friend's house and they make you coffee and it's bitter and cold, and they ask how the coffee is, and you say, "Oh my God, it's so good." And then for the rest of your life, they make you that coffee, right? It's like, why didn't you just say, "Well, you know," but we get so like sensitive about stuff. So, you know, if I have a problem with a guitar player or a drummer or someone in the, you know, the alcohol business or whatever, they're showing up late, or they're bringing negativity in, or, you know, they might not even know they're doing that. And so it's my role as a leader to let them know so they can fix it or so they can move on.
Challenging conversation.
The big one for me is delegating, because I'm a micromanager, perfectionist, and I have this set of skills where I can do a lot of things at a high level, but I realize like, does it matter if I can do this at a high level if the 7 other things I need to get done don't get done?
Yeah.
So I need to delegate.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of pride in finding someone on the team who wants to learn and then does learn, and you get to watch them grow. Yeah. And know, like, as a leader, you're responsible for that. So that's been my personal, you know, thing, is like, that means a lot to me.
Yeah. Delegation's really hard. Now, where can folks get a hold of you? Where can they find Brett Westgrove in this massive
so
world?
Easy. Brett Westgrove, 2 T's in Brett, WEST. Grove. Brett Westgrove or Brett Westgrove Music, literally on any of the platforms. If you just Google my name, you will absolutely be the first hit you find for the website. There's an email list there, all of the things, Spotify, you know, everywhere. We're all over the place.
That's great. Brett, thank you so much for being on the show
Andy.
today.
I appreciate it, man.
It was fantastic having you here. My name's Andy Tempty. This is the Balancing Act Podcast. You can find us on all the major streaming services as well as YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your friends and your neighbors and your colleagues. The show is produced by Nicholas Tempty. We'll see you next time on the Balancing Act.